What's up, broskies and broskets? Welcome to another edition of Tangzilla Talks. This time we're talking about Starcraft 2, now that we know the release date of the final installment of the trilogy, Legacy of the Void. This is the campaign that most of us have been waiting for. Protoss are a fan favorite, and people have been waiting for this expansion since Wings of Liberty came out, 5 years ago. So we know the date for Legacy of the Void. So what? The real question on people's minds, since they know when it's coming now, is what's next for the Starcraft IP? Will it be shelved? What's happening with the Blizzard RTS team now that Starcraft 2 is finished? It all comes down to the ending of the campaign of Legacy. So many what-ifs will become clearer. The possible futures for the property will finally start to narrow a bit. People have been asking for years for a World of Starcraft, for the property to get the same love that Warcraft did. There are some major things that need to be addressed, however, for Starcraft to make the same jump. To start off, there is factions. Even with the additional races in Warcraft 3, it was very easy to group them into two warring factions, since for most of its history, Warcraft was very much orcs versus humans, with other races allied into the factions in the form of units. Starcraft, however, has always been about the three-way war, the rock, paper, scissors. Having three factions is integral to the heart of the Starcraft property. There will always be three factions. So an MMO will have to have three factions, which sounds more than doable. It sounds like an obvious selling point, until you really start to consider two things: the Zerg and what MMO players like. At first glance, you would say it would be easy to do with the Zerg what WoW did with the Forsaken. Make a splinter faction under a queen's control. I mean, it's basically copy and pasted already. For those who don't get the hint, Kerrigan and Sylvanas are basically the same character. The next issue, however, is that the Forsaken are undead humans, thus already humanoid with legs and arms and all that fun stuff. The Zerg are not. Why is this a problem? Because people like loot. They like armor, equipment, eye candy, looking elite. You can't give them that from a race that wears no external armor and uses no weapons or tools. So the only answer from there is that to make the Zerg faction plausible for an MMO setting, they need to be hybrids, of which there are few at best in lore that have any sort of sentience. Which means that if they want to set up a World of Starcraft, that the ending of Legacy of the Void will give us two things: a plausible Zerg-like race for a third faction, and an enemy such as the Xel'Naga's continued existence. The ending of the Starcraft 2 story will have to wrap up both loose ends and serve as a precursor. In my WoW Must Die video, I talked about my guess at a secret project dropping in 2017. The confirmation of Legacy's release only reaffirms this for me. Warcraft 3 released in 2002, followed by the Frozen Throne expansion in 2003. World of Warcraft was being worked on the whole time secretly, and was released in November 2004, 2 years after the launch of Warcraft 3. Partially by that logic, we would have gotten a World of Starcraft in 2012. But the original Warcraft 3 included campaigns for all the races, and the expansion of the Frozen Throne was basically just a setup to make World of Warcraft lore work. Durotar needed to be founded, and Arthas had to take up his throne in Northrend. We know that the Legacy of the Void is supposed to wrap up the Starcraft 2 story, so if there is actually a Starcraft MMO in the pipeline, there should be some hints of the setup within its story. Don't be fooled, the foundation is there. The Heart of the Swarm storyline shares many obvious and subtle directives with Arthas' campaign from Frozen Throne, the regathering of a shattered force, pulling its will away from the taint of the original being that controlled/created it. Kerrigan's journey itself mirrors both Arthas and, as stated, Sylvanas', the two different masters of the undead. Are these similarities due to Blizzard using the same schema to set up Starcraft as it did Warcraft? I hope they are. With World of Warcraft continuously showing its age, and Blizzard's statements about not trying to make their own titles compete for genre attention, I would love to see the IP switch, and bring Warcraft back to RTS, as a Warcraft 4 generating new lore to work with and building off everything that has occurred in WoW, while Starcraft steps out for a bit to become the new MMO. It may sound like wishful thinking, but the history is established. All that's left is to see what happens to Legacy of the Void, and try to guess at what they could be setting up. I'll be back with my impressions of exactly that after release on November 10th. Zilla out.
Today, we retake our homeworld, and with it, our legacy.